Just look at it. Just take a look. Lagos State, look at that. Pull up for this guy, make a talk to him. You mean? No, boy, into what they eat. That's why they kill people. No good now. That's why they kill people.
A boy see cow for National Assembly, no be small thing. See cow in the National Assembly. Wonderful. Wonderful. See cow in National Assembly.
Only in Lagos, Nigeria, leaking tank, as in like really, it's Jesus Christ, it's leaking. God damn it, man. Jeez.
This truck doesn't have a tire. It has nylon tied around it. Can you imagine? And then they are damaging the road that belongs to government. Go now. Go outside.
This is Eyewitness Report on Channels Television, where we follow up on stories uploaded to our Eyewitness portal by esteemed viewers from across the globe. Now do keep the pictures and videos coming in. Today, we'll bring you our experience traveling down the Benin-Auchi Expressway, a highway that has put on the lips of users stories to tell. Similar story comes from Boko Awaji Route in Benue State. Details in a moment. I'm Chris Elems. Now, the journey from Benin to Apapa is about 72 kilometers, while from Apapa to Auchi is put at roughly 39 kilometers. So we're talking about 111 kilometer stretch of road, which could be traveled in about 1 hour or 1 hour 30 minutes. Well, that's no longer the case. Motorists now spend as much as 3 hours to even 5 hours flying that same route due to several bad spots that line up the road. More painful for the Edo people is the fact that the state has produced several ministers of works, yet no visible effect on the road that leads to their hometown. This photo, sent in by Eyewitness, leads us on a trip down the Benin-Auchi Expressway. For most travelers from Benin going to Apapa and Auchi, their journey begins at Rama Park in Dubahia, and this usually takes between 45 minutes to an hour. But that's no longer the case due to the dilapidated state of this all-important road. Vehicles going to the north or returning ply the Benin-Auchi route, which now reeks of neglect and riddled with potholes. The dualization of the road has for a while terminated at Igweke Junction, less than 15 kilometers of the entire stretch.
I greet you.
It is often from that junction motorist nightmare begins.
As accruable revenue to Nigeria's coffers dangles away weekly, or rightly put, the ride is too bumpy to make it to the safes. Apapa is a nightmare. It has challenged a lot of businesses and still does. Property value is under attack. The area is constantly a source of worry, and the reasons are not far-fetched. Gridlock has the better part of doing business around that axis. On the flip side of Nigeria's revenue coin is the Apapa and Tinkan Island port, which has long been plagued by a tonnage of bad sports leading into the port. On the streets, on the bridges, the inner streets, every space trucks for wet and dry cargo finds is good enough for them, but very bad for others, with far-reaching consequences like the recent burning of 2 banks following a confrontation between a security operative attached to the premises and a truck driver who can't understand why a space in front of a bank isn't good enough for his truck to hibernate. What exactly is the problem with accessing the ports or getting out after transaction? Are there inefficiencies inside the port?
And the change agenda of the current administration?
The Nigerian nation is in shambles right now, and the ship of the nation is adrift. Things are terrible. The economy is in shambles. Our security situation is nothing to write home about. And the current government came into position of power in 2015 with a promise to do only 3 things. And that was to revamp the economy and to improve the security situation with regards to insurgencies around the country and general crime. I think the 3rd thing they said was to fight corruption. And what we have now is that the insurgents are even more emboldened than they used to be before. You also seen that a new frontier of insurgency has been opened by herdsmen who are all over the country rampaging and killing farmers, subsistence farmers. And the anti-corruption war is so one-sided that the only way you can regard it as corrupt is if you are not a member of the ruling party. If you are a member of the ruling party, you are suddenly seen as a clean person. And if you are not, you are hunted all over the place. I have fought corruption over the years on my own as a reporter and public.
And Nigeria has overtaken India as the country with the largest number of extremely poor, with 87 million people living in extreme poverty, according to a new report by Brookings Institution. Paul Alaje, senior economist at SPM Professionals, joins me from Abuja to discuss this. Now, Paul, I came across a headline yesterday, and it says Nigeria beats India to clinch the position of the country with the highest number of extremely poor people. And I said to myself, I had no idea we're actually in competition, for that particular position. But on a more serious note, what do you make of this new report?
Yeah, it only shows that we have end report results of our inactions, particularly as it affects economic policy. What we should consider, a number of persons have argued that most Nigerians now can live above $2 a day. And I wonder if they really understand that using $2 a day is just one of the parameters. There are about 7 different indicators for measuring those that are poor. And if because of time, I don't know if I have time to run through them. Number 1 is housing. If you live in a house that has thatched roof and there is no toilet within your house, you are said to be poor. And to make it very clear, if the distance between your bedroom and your toilet is more than 45 seconds, then you are said to be poor. Again, if more than one family share a toilet, then such family is said to be poor. Again, access to water. A lot of Nigerians, at least 2/3 of Nigerian population, don't have access to potable water. So how do you say you are rich or you are living comfortably if you don't have access to water? As I speak to you today, the housing gap in Nigeria is over 20 million. In 2017, in 2012, it was 17 million. In 2012, it was 17 million. And UNDP says the housing gap is increasing by 860,000 per annum. If you are 860,000 and you even want to use simple interest but not compound interest, you already have almost 22 million housing gap as we speak today. So people that are poor, most of the time, they don't have houses. And Nigerian population is no longer 180. According to the DG of the agency that should know, he said Nigerian population is now 198 million people. So if 198 million people, approximately 200 million people, have more poor people than a country that is 1.34 billion people, then it calls for a lot of worry. So it does not come to our organization as a surprise. We know that the kind of policy Nigeria makes is not to leave people out of poverty, it's perhaps to keep people moving on. For instance, we hear government officials say that we have lifted 2,000 people out of unemployment. We have now made policy that has engaged 80,000 people. Meanwhile, unemployment figure is 45 million people. Unemployment and youth unemployment with inflation is over 70%. You know what that means? In economics, we call it the miserable index. That is, the misery index is total number of people that became miserable from one year to the other. In Nigeria, more than 70% of the people are now miserable. So because of this miserability, it can be measured in terms of job, and that is why every 6 minutes,
now,
you
Paul,
see one person become poorer.
Paul, I understand you clearly, and those are very interesting numbers you're dropping. Now, when you talk about the fact that current policies, will not in any way address or, at least take us off this ranking, taking a look at the ERGP, do you think that there's hope there? Do you think that can really address, of course, unemployment? If people get a job and get paid, of course, they'll be able to take care of their families and improve living conditions. Do you think that the document we're working on at the moment will address this? Or are you referring to, of course, policies in the past?
ERGP is already doing its best. It's not different from policy we've had in the past. If a country must develop its development plan, not a short-term, medium-term policy like you have in ERGP, among others. We need a development plan that will indicate how we are going to migrate from a consuming nation to a developed nation. For every €1 you earn in Nigeria, you have to spend them in at least these 4 ways. Number one, there's what we call marginal propensity to consume. That is money you spend on consumption. Marginal propensity to save, money you put in your bank account as savings for the future. Marginal rate of taxation, the one you spend as taxes, and what you spend on importation. Where you are in Lagos, where I am in Abuja, 90% of everything around us are imported. It's not that Nigeria is cost, that Nigeria could not produce. Listen, if there is consumption, there must be production. The challenge is ERGP has not explained how it will convert large consuming tendencies of Nigeria to production capacity. And any policy that have not addressed production, it will just be a mere policy that will take only 1,000 out of poverty line. But what you need to take out of poverty line is millions of people. And then we want to help. How did China, beg your pardon, leave 200 million out of poverty? United States of America is the largest country in North America and is the largest production hub in North America. Brazil is the same for South America, is the largest production hub in South America.
Paul,
China is the largest in Asia.
Paul, we can actually go on and on with this comparison. So I'm just going to ask you one question. I just want just one answer to it. Now, with, of course, us dealing with our crisis here in the country, politics coming up to begin with, of course, you're aware of the recent killings in Plateau. We have Boko Haram to deal with. We even have ISIS to deal with. Do you see us leaving this ranking anytime soon? It's a yes or no? With
the current policy, I would say big no to that. And that is why I want to encourage Nigeria to please put their minds together, look beyond politics. Let's look for people who can help us, lift us out of this underdevelopment that we find.
Well, thank you so much, Paul Alaje there.
The old people have been restructuring Nigeria into their pockets forever and ever. They've been doing it since they were born. I'm sorry, I don't hate old people because Wole Soyinka is old and I love him. But I do not respect old people who capitalize and prey on young people, deny them of their future, and then come around when they lose money or they lose power to talk about restructuring. If Nigeria wanted to be restructured by people like our father or your father, Olufala, he would not have accepted 100 million naira from Jonathan. All those traditional rulers who were pocketing monies that could have been used to build schools, bridges and roads, they can't teach me restructuring. They are not interested in Nigeria that is restructured in your interest. The restructuring of Nigeria has to take an economic form first of empowerment. And secondly, after we are done with that, we have to do away with the constitution that was created by the military. We cannot claim that the constitution of Nigeria today claims that we the people, were you part of the people that wrote the constitution? Did you vote for the constitution? So why is anybody imposing that on me to restructure Nigeria with? Of course we are going to do health and education. I come back to that. May you never be a PhD holder that has to drive a truck for Dangote. Amen. Right? Amen. And that is what we have been doing. Somebody was asking how come Dangote's company do not produce billionaires or millionaires like him. They are not designed to do that. If a company's job is to hire PhD holders to be driving trucks, it doesn't want the PhD holder to become self-sufficient. And it is the reason why I proposed that we will merge our minimum wage to a level that is called living wage, so that the salaries, which is 18,000 naira, that is paid to workers in this country, will not become what Yoruba people call salary. You know, go and see it, because it will never take you home. Nothing, and I say nothing, and I say this unapologetically, prevents Nigeria from paying 100,000 naira minimum wage to its workers. Even that is insulting, because in Mauritius, the minimum wage for people who are doing factory work is $536 per month. In Nigeria, it's $46.9 per month. And I see a lot of Facebook economists saying that it will cause inflation. Well, I say, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they are saying. The inflation that is not caused when some senators are collecting 13 million naira a month for doing nothing. It didn't cause inflation. When Desiani and Kola Aloko stole $3 billion, which the vice VP of Nigeria certified a few days ago, it didn't cause inflation. When Mrs. Jonathan started opening all these accounts, 5 million here, 10 million there, 50 million here, it didn't cause inflation. But when you say that that money should be given to our workers so that they can send their children to school, so that they can buy medicine, so that they can ride, they can have dignity, they say it's going to cause inflation.
Wow, thank you. Can you give for a round of applause? The conversation has just started.
So, I am not making promises. What we have calculated is that it will only cost Nigeria just $1.3 billion more to pay workers 100,000.
We want to ask you some questions.
Yes, go ahead, please.
What's your name?
Yusuf Aladenge. Good afternoon, Mr. Sowore. I came all the way from Abeokuta.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Many people have touted you as just an anti-corruption procedure with no clear blueprint.
Project!
With no clear blueprint on economic revivalism or social insurance for the country. How would you react to this claim, sir?
I just told you that workers will be paid 100,000 naira, and I want to add 10,000 naira. That's minimum wage.